to another video, guys. This has been a video that's kind of been in the making for the last year or two, and kind of wanted to dive in to sort of my approach that I'm going to be taking this year to my style of hunting, and kind of share some of the equipment that I'm going to be using this year, and kind of dive into all of that. So this is not going to be an in-depth review of the equipment or anything like that, but I did want to talk a little bit about the style of hunt I'm going to be doing this year, and ultimately I'm going to be a lot more mobile. So in the past, I've had, usually one or two properties that I could hunt, and we did a lot of pre-hung sets, and it was always, every year doing a little bit of fine tuning, that type of thing. But here in the last couple of years, I've kind of narrowed it down to one core property that I hunt and learning that property really well, doing a lot of improvements, habitat improvements, and I've got a lot of videos walking through everything that I've done to that piece. But then, I've attempted to pick up some of these permission farms, or I've bought a couple small properties. So that's kind of how I've developed what I'm going to be doing for this coming year. So I've got this one main property. That's where a lot of the deer that I'm chasing typically are on. And there's usually at least one good deer in the area on that piece. And so that property, I've dialed in. I've hunted it for this will be, I think, the 6th year now, and I've really got the property dialed in and figured out what the deer are doing certain times a year. And I basically have half a dozen permanent sets on 55 acres, and that's really all I need, between a couple blinds and 3 or 4 tree stands. That's really all I need, and there's no need to hunt outside of those areas, generally speaking. I've made a few plays here and there last year where I was trying to get tight to some deer, but for the most part, those are kind of pre-hung sets, the habitat dialed in, and that's all it needs to be. And so last year I was doing some self-filming and really did not enjoy it at all. And so what ended up happening was I was taking a lot of gear in with me, between a big pack, all my filming gear, and just a lot to carry. And then if I was trying to do any kind of mobile hunting on some of my other pieces, it was so much gear to carry in, and it completely took away the enjoyment of hunting for me. And so I've kind of, gone maybe a little bit on the extreme on the other side of that for this year, but I'm going to be basically cutting down to an extremely minimal setup. I'm not the type of guy that typically hunts all day long and does these all day sits. I try and get in, when I need to, and I'm there for the window of time that I feel like I'm going to kill that deer. And so my approach this year is basically stripping away everything. I'm not going to be filming. That really took away from the hunting aspect of me, living through that lens and not being able to take in what's going on around me. And I'm literally down to my bow, which I'm going to be shooting the Matthews Lift this year. Picked it up late season last year, ended up killing a pretty decent buck with it, and my bino harness. And so this year I got the Everly Stock modular bino harness. Been looking around for a little while of different harnesses and stuff, and figuring out what I want, but I wanted something to where I could basically pack on me the things I need. And there's even, I got an additional little pack that goes underneath here for a knife or something like that. But just the bare bones essentials. Obviously my hunting clothes will have pockets where I could stuff some stuff in. And then it's even got some MOLLE on the back of this pack where I could potentially, figure out something to strap on, a jacket or something back there for my walk in. And so I'm going to be very, very light going into this year. And basically just my bow, my bino harness, I got my release, my rangefinder, and I got some room here for a few additional items. And that's really all I need, just to get out there, go hunt and enjoy it. And then back to, my approach to hunting this year, I want to be a lot more mobile than I've been in the past. And so on this, farm that I've been talking about, everything's pre-hung, like I said. But on all these other permission pieces and some of the farms that I've been able to hunt, I've seen time and time again, those first 2 years, it feels like I'm always, if I'm doing pre-hung sets, I'm always behind. I'm always trying to chase that deer. I'm figuring out how the deer utilize the property, and I feel like I'm at a disadvantage of having pre-hung sets. And so I picked up the Lone Wolf Custom Gear 0.5 this year, and then I'm going to be running the Latitude sticks, the Carbon SS, on that stand. I may eventually switch over to those new micro doubles that they just come out with, but for this year I'm going to be running the Latitude. And I'm really excited about this setup. I hunted out of the saddle a little bit last year, and that was fun, but I still like to be in a tree stand. It's a little more comfortable. I feel like I could stay in it longer. I'm not moving around as much. I'm a really fidgety person, so in that saddle I'm constantly swinging around and moving, whereas in the tree stand I'm going to be a lot more still. And so yeah, my approach this year is going to be very mobile, trying to get in on deer. And a lot of these new pieces I've picked up, multiple permission pieces this year. I'm basically diving in, looking for sign, trying to get on these deer, and you know, if it ends up being a rut hunt, I'll price it myself in a good funnel or something. But that leads me to the biggest change I'm making this year is I'm not going to be running cell cams. This is something that I've kind of been thinking about for the last year to 6 months. And last year was a really rough year for me. I had 2 good deer that I was hunting, but they were all a couple miles away, and I knew this from the year before. I was waiting for these deer to come in, shift in there into late season. And it was very frustrating not having a deer to hunt and just watching my cameras, just hunting based off of my cameras, waiting for a deer to show up that I wanted to kill. And you know, after I found out those couple deer that I was waiting on got killed, I just sat out for a huge portion of the season, and it was kind of depressing, to be honest. And so I'm going to be, you know, I've run it on cell mode this summer, but I'm going to be switching. Basically, I'll keep the cameras out. I'm going to keep running cameras, but I'm going to be switching to just swapping out SD cards like we did back in the day. And part of it for me is just getting back to forcing myself to spend more time in the woods, be out there hunting more. I have, in the last 2 years, begun to realize how much cameras miss. It's easy to think, well, I've got this one camera and a pinch down at this bottom, and that's going to tell me everything that moves through that area, and it just doesn't. And so my approach is going to be to just try and be out there more. Especially on that main piece where I know that property well. I know the deer that are in the area. There's not a whole lot there that's going to surprise me. And so, you know, I'm going to keep running cameras, like I said, and I want to keep checking and making sure there's nothing showing up. But my plan is to be very mobile, get out there, spend a lot of time in the woods, as well as I'm planning on doing some Illinois public land hunting. And so that'll be my first real out-of-state hunt. And really my first go at public land. I'm excited for it. It looks a little bit overwhelming, to be honest, but I am very excited to pick apart pieces over there and see if I can get on a mature deer. My standards are, you know, basically going to be a 4-year-old or better, and not too concerned about, you know, size of antlers or rack, but I'm really excited to be able to get out and hunt some of these other areas. So like I said, I'm not going to be filming this year, but I will keep you guys updated about how my season's going and dropping a few videos like this, probably just sharing how my season has gone. And, you know, if I get some footage maybe with my phone or something, but that's really going to be sort of my plans for this coming year. One piece of information, last week I dropped a video talking about my target for the year. And there's been an update on that deer. So since then, I've been getting a ton of pictures of that deer, and he's really moved in, and I feel like just ready to shed velvet. And I was starting to talk to some other people, and I felt like he just hadn't quite made the jump that I was hoping he would from the year before. And got to talking to one of the other neighbors that I haven't talked to a whole lot yet. He said that this is actually not the deer I thought it was. And so we got to talking, and here the buck that I, you know, was watching all of last year that actually picked up a shed was found dead soon after he shed out. And so I now know which deer this is that I'm getting videos of, and it is just a 4-year-old. Still a great looking deer, but it probably is not going to be my target this year, and I plan to pass that buck. So now it kind of the search begins. I feel like sort of my plans have changed. I've been waiting for that buck to come back for all year, and now I'm not sure. I've got a couple leads on a few deer that that I know of. There's one on my other properties that I own that potentially haven't really got a good look at him yet, that I would consider hunting. I know he's 5, but kind of back to the drawing board a little bit on what deer I'm going to be hunting. And so I'm excited to dive into some of these new permission pieces and see if I can't turn over a decent buck. And again, my goal here in Ohio is a 5-year-old or better. And so it's gonna be a challenge. I'm excited for something different, going back to hunting very minimalistic and, hunting just off of, SD card swaps. I think it's gonna add another dynamic to it. And I'm very, very excited for this coming season. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. See you in the next one.